This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
To find out how you can help kickstart our latest show live from Base 6, visit our website and click on the Kickstarter icon. Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and in this episode, I'm making my lemon meringue cupcakes. Now, everybody's had lemon meringue pie, but I turned it into a cupcake. The way I did it is I made a really good lemon cake, then filled it with a fabulous tart lemon filling and topped it all off with Italian meringue. Now these cupcakes actually have three parts to them. They have the cake part, they have the filling part, and then they have the meringue. So we're first going to start by making the lemon filling. And to do that, we need to get all of our ingredients ready before we even start cooking on the stove. So to get started, we're going to separate 4 eggs because for this recipe, we need 4 egg yolks. Now, if you're kind of new to baking, this way of separating eggs is really a great way to do it. What I do is I have a series of 3 bowls, a small one and 2 medium-sized ones. This small one is where I'm going to initially separate my yolk from my white. And you can see I just kind of go back and forth really carefully. And then once I have just the yolk, I'm going to go ahead and put it in this middle bowl. And then this white I'm going to put over here in this bowl. And the reason that I go to this trouble is because when you're trying to separate out yolks from whites, you can't have any yolk, for example, in the whites. So if, for example, an egg were to break or you get a bunch of shell, you would end up ruining all the other eggs that you've separated. So this is a really good way to keep your yolks and your whites separated. So for our filling, we need 4 egg yolks. So I'm going to set that off to the side. I'm not going to be using the whites in the filling, so I'm going to set that off to the side here. And then we need to start talking about our lemon. I like a really full lemon flavor in this filling. So what I've done is I've gone out to my lemon tree and I've picked some lemons, and we're going to take the zest off of them. Now you can see lemons come in lots of different sizes, and for a lot of recipes it doesn't really matter, but for this one you want a full tablespoon of lemon zest. So what I'm going to do is use my microplaner and I'm going to run it across the top of the lemon. And the reason that I do it this way is, as you can see, all the zest collects right here on the top. And this is such an easy way then to measure out your zest. So now that I've grated the zest off about 3 of my lemons, I'm going to go ahead and take my 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, and that's about right. And see how easy that was for me to just kind of run that along the microplaner. So anyway, I'm going to keep this, and that's going to go with my yolks off to the side. Now we have to go ahead and get some fresh lemon juice. So I'm going to use the lemons that I've just zested. And we need a 1/2 cup. Now if you have a juicer and you like to use that, that's great. A lot of times what I just use is my measuring cup with a little strainer on top. And then I use one of these reamers, which is kind of nice. Or you could use a fork. But you want to put it right in the lemon and kind of squeeze. Now, a lot of homegrown lemons like mine have a lot of seeds in them, so you really have to capture them in something. You wouldn't want to just squeeze them straight into your filling because you don't want seeds in that. So just go ahead and squeeze as many lemons as it takes to get a 1/2 cup of lemon juice. So the last thing I want to get together right now is 1.5 tablespoons of butter. And I'm using unsalted butter for this recipe. And I'm just going to take it and cut it up into some little cubes, just like this. Now we're going to go ahead and get ready to go over to the stove. But first you need to get out a small saucepan. And in that we're going to put 1/2 cup of sugar plus another 2 tablespoons. Then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and this is what's going to really thicken our lemon filling. Now I'm going to be using a whisk to cook this, so I want to go ahead and get my whisk out, and I'm going to go ahead and whisk together that sugar and cornstarch just to sort of get it together. And then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of water, and I'm going to go ahead and whisk that together. Then I'm going to take my whole board over to the stove and we're going to start cooking. Okay, so I brought my pot over here to the stove, and this is going to cook on a medium heat, and I'm going to stick with this and whisk it. Now it's been about 6 or 7 minutes, and as you can see it's starting to simmer, which is great. Cornstarch really doesn't start working to thicken until it starts bubbling like this, and you can see now it's starting to turn clear on me, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to stay with this, I'm going to continue whisking, and I'm going to go ahead and drop in my egg yolks. I'm going to go ahead and whisk, whisk, whisk. Then I'm going to put in my lemon zest. You can see this is why I wanted to have all these ingredients together. Then I'm going to add my lemon juice. And then I'm going to add my butter, and I'm going to add it in just 1 cube at a time. And once that's melted, then I'm going to go ahead and add another one. I'm going to drop my last little cube of butter in. And notice I have not stopped whisking, I just keep going. And what I'm looking to do now is to bring this mixture up to a really brisk simmer, which means I want to see a lot of nice bubbles going on. So I'm just going to stick with this for another couple of minutes. That cornstarch is continuing to thicken everything up. And you can see I'm starting to get a few bubbles, but that's not quite brisk enough. Now you see how that's starting to really bubble quite a bit? That's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off and take the pan off the heat. Now we want to go ahead and get our lemon filling into another bowl because we want to start it to cool down. So you can see how wonderfully thick it is. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer it into a bowl like this. And then I'm going to let this sit at room temperature for about 1/2 hour because this is way too hot to put into the refrigerator right now. But I'm just going to go ahead and let it sit here for about 1/2 hour. Then I'm going to cover with plastic, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator because this has to be totally cold when we go to fill our cupcakes. So our filling is cooling. Now we're going to start by making our cupcakes. So we're going to start by lining our muffin pan with some cupcake liners. And I've also got the oven preheating to 350 degrees. So we're going to start by getting our dry ingredients into a small bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out 1 cup of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to use my little whisk, and I'm going to whisk those ingredients together. Now in the mixer, we're going to start creaming some butter and some sugar. So I have 1/2 cup of butter, and I'm going to cut it into some cubes. I find that that really helps it cream up nicely. So I'm going to pop that in, along with 1/2 cup of sugar. And I'm going to go ahead and let that cream until it gets nice and fluffy. Now I'm going to go ahead and add 2 eggs. While the eggs are mixing in, I'm going to go ahead and get another lemon, and I'm just going to take the zest off of that with my microplaner. And I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, And I need to get 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze the juice out of that lemon that I just took the zest off. And then I'm just going to measure out 2 tablespoons of that. Now while the mixer's running, I'm just going to slowly start adding my flour. And I'm just going to let this mix until it all starts to come together. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my spatula and just do one final mix down. And then it's time to start putting our batter into our muffin tin. So I'm just going to use my little medium-size cookie scoop, and I'm going to go ahead and put 1 scoop of dough into each liner. Now once I have a scoop in each one of the wells, then I'm just going to go back and divide the rest of the batter up. Now these are filled about halfway full, and then I'm going to pop these in the oven. Again, I've preheated it to 350 degrees, which is a nice moderate oven, and I'm going to bake these for about 18 to 20 minutes. So these have been cooking for about 18 minutes, and you do want to take a toothpick and go into the center, make sure it comes out clean. These look great. Now I'm going to go ahead and let them sit in the pan for about 5 minutes, just like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a fork and just lift these out of the cupcake pan. And you can see they raise just about even with the liner, which is just perfect. And once these are sitting on the rack for probably a good hour or so, they need to be totally cool before we can put the filling in them and then top them with our Italian meringue. So our cupcakes are cooled, our lemon filling is nice and chilled, so now it's time to make the meringue part of our cupcakes. Now a few episodes back I showed you a chocolate cupcake with a Swiss meringue. Well, for these lemon meringue cupcakes, I'm going to put an Italian meringue on them. And an Italian meringue, what we do is we're going to make a simple syrup. So in a small saucepan, I'm going to put a half a cup of water and a full cup of sugar. And I'm going to stir this together, and I'm going to put this over on the stove, and we're going to cook it. So I've taken my little saucepan and I have it over a medium-high heat. And I've just got a spoon, and I'm just going to kind of stir this to help the sugar start to dissolve. And what I'm looking to do is I'm looking for this mixture to start boiling. Okay, so it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, and you can see that the simple syrup is starting to boil. Now this is perfect. I can stop stirring at this point. I'm going to turn the heat down to a low, and I'm going to let this cook for 4 minutes. Now I've just brought my simple syrup right off from the stove, and I'm going to set it here, and it's going to cool while I'm getting my egg whites whipped. Now remember when we separated our 4 egg yolks earlier? Well, these are the 4 egg whites. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in my mixer with my whisk attachment, and I'm going to beat those until they start to foam up just a little bit, about a minute or so. So my eggs have started to foam up. So now I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now cream of tartar is just to help stabilize the egg whites. Now one of the things that we've learned is that cream of tartar can be different in different parts of the world. And in some places it's a very strong flavor. If you find the cream of tartar that that is available to you is strong, don't use it. What you can do then is just skip the cream of tartar piece, and then we're just going to go ahead and let the egg whites beat until they're soft peaks. Now for soft peaks, that's going to take about 2 minutes on a medium-high speed. Now I'm starting to see some tracks in my egg white, so that tells me that they're almost at a soft peak. So what a soft peak looks like is when you pull the meringue out, the top just sort of flops over like that. Now that's a soft peak, so that means that it's time to start putting our simple syrup in these egg whites. Now I'm going to put the mixer on a slow speed, and I'm going to take my simple syrup and I'm just going to very slowly add this in, almost like a little thin stream. It's really important that we not put the syrup in too quickly because we don't want it to start cooking the egg whites. So now I'm going to go ahead and add just a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this up to medium-high, and this is going to beat for 5 minutes. Now while the egg whites are beating, I've gotten a rimmed baking sheet out, and I'm going to go ahead and take all of the cupcakes and put this on here because this is going to need to go back in the oven for a few minutes to brown our meringue. Now, we're going to need to get our filling into our cupcakes, so let me show you how we do that. So we need to create a well inside of our cupcake to hold our filling. So there's a couple of ways to do it. One is if you have a nice sharp short blade knife, you can go ahead and just sort of carve a little well out of the center, and I just have a little bowl here that I'm putting the crumbs in. That's one way. And then another way is my good old-fashioned melon baller. And what you can do is just go through and put it on top of the cupcake, kind of rock it back and forth, and create a hole that way. Now it's important that you not go all the way to the bottom of the cupcake because we want the filling to sort of be suspended in the center. But, just about that much will leave a nice amount of filling. Now, there's a couple of ways you can get your filling into your cupcakes. If you want to take some small spoons and kind of spoon it in, you can do that. But one of the ways that I have found that really works well is I just take a little resealable bag and I put some of the filling inside of it just like this. And I go ahead and seal it up. And then on one of the corners, I take a pair of scissors and I just sort of snip the corner off. And then I squeeze the filling towards that open corner. Then you just go ahead and you squeeze some of that lemon filling right into your little well that you've made. Now if you find you need more filling in your bag, just take another bit of it, put it right in your bag, and then continue filling your cupcake wells. Well, you can see at this point your meringue is nice and thick. So now it's time to go ahead and put it on our cupcakes. Now at this point it's important that you kind of separate your cupcakes a little bit on your baking sheet because once the meringue gets on, it's kind of hard to move them. So what I'm going to do is just take a nice spoonful of the meringue, and I'm going to be using my offset spatula, and I'm just going to put it right on top of the cupcake. And then with my offset spatula, I'm just going to kind of move it all over the top. Now there's a couple of styles. You can have it smooth if you want. I kind of like a little spiky thing, but you can do whatever you like. And then you just take another spoonful and put it right on top. Now because this meringue is so stable, you can really pile it on nice and high. And then you can, if you want to make it kind of spiky, then you just kind of sort of touch your spatula to it and it makes those little spikes. Now I've got all of the meringue on top. They're nice and spiky, but now we need to brown them in the oven for a little bit. So I've preheated my oven up to 400 degrees, and I'm going to put these in for just between 4 and 6 minutes. You'll want to watch them. Now this has been about 6 minutes in my oven, and you can see how nicely brown the little tips are. That's just perfect. Now these are still very warm, so we're going to let these sit and cool. Well, if you'd like to give these lemon meringue cupcakes a try, just go to our website and go to the Cupcake Show show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll see you next time.